So, one of the things that we also talk about, right, is whether or not things inside of Microsoft 365, especially things like Business Premium, are being overlooked, right? Um, Randy and Josh have already done a fantastic job kind of outlining some of the things like the Defender Plan 1, the Intune Plan 1, all the different elements that kind of come and exist behind all of those pieces, right? Whether it's reviewing whether a user is in what's called a risky user state, right? Risky user state could be based off of multiple items, whether they're logging in from a different country, right? There's a policy in there that says, if a user may be logged in from the central United States at 9:03 and at 9:05 also logged in from, Czechoslovakia, that's a impossible login scenario, right? That could trigger a risky user. Those are elements of conditional access that are really big for locking down, especially things like geofencing and user management. So those are often overlooked. We want to make sure that those are getting put into place very quickly. Things like SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange settings that aren't being optimized. Sometimes we see things like going into an environment and any user can create a Microsoft 365 group and thus create a SharePoint site and thus create a content library where data can be stored, right? You don't necessarily know at the top level, right, at the management level, maybe some of the things that are going into those repositories, and thus you don't have control. So making sure optimizations for security and efficiency are in place are a big deal as well. And then, of course, making sure, working with companies like Choice and PAX, that license management and your cost controls are being managed, right? Because cost is always a big driver for efficiency and having those conversations. And then one of the things I'm also really proud of that Nerdio brings to the table is CIS alignment. For those that don't know, CIS is the certified part, the Center for Internet Security. We're a certified partner. So one of the ways we help to raise the security bar is through our partnership with the CIS. They're a nonprofit that was originally started by a DoD grant about 25 years ago. And they've become kind of the global security best practice, really focusing on United States um, architecture, right? So their standards are trusted by government agencies, hospitals, Fortune 500 companies, financial institutions. Us being a certified CIS benchmark purveyor, we're allowed to push out those items inside of our tools, right? So Intune-based MDN devices, or your Windows 10, Windows 11, or even Windows Server devices. Security policies that Choice is going to be deploying or have the option to deploy are already aligned with industry standards in those cases, right? So this is powerful because it's going to bring policies straight from the platform, already configured, already certified, already standardized. There's no need to recreate them. There's no need to, really drive into what changes are instituted there because it's already going to get you to a level of certification that is recognized by things like, NIST and FedRAMP and stuff like that. So while other platforms are going to require separate Microsoft tenant elements for each and every policy variation, Nerdio is going to do things like assist with applying those different security standards to different groups and different customer elements from one place, right? So this is going to be really big for organizations in regulated industries like construction, healthcare, and finance. And then just to kind of wrap things up, some of the things that Nerdio really helps with are doing things like simplifying security, speeding up setup, and really driving the acceleration to value, making sure you get that full value you're paying for from Microsoft 365 interface. Whether it's going to be onboarding, tightening security, or just keeping things organized, we're going to really help deliver tools that are going to make that happen faster. So, if things like Business Premium are the what, Nerdio and Choice are definitely going to be the how and why.
Yeah, and so a couple things that we talked about here. One of the things that kind of comes with um, the Nerdio tool on the back end is not only do we have the Intune app management, we have the unified app management itself, which helps us comment, really kind of centralize packaging those applications for Intune, but we also leverage it into Nerdio's tool as a great uh, management platform for cloud PCs, which is a conversation we're having more and more with customers as we're looking to adopt. Maybe, you've got workforces that are completely virtual, developer workstations, whatever else. Cloud PCs are becoming a conversation more and more regularly. Now we can control and manage those. Also, could standardize deployment of those applications from a centralized repository, both for the endpoints in Intune and for the cloud PCs. Same thing for Azure Virtual Desktop, which we're having more and more discussions around as well. So this tool has been extremely valuable for us, and again, one of the things we can help bring to bear for our customers. Again, in terms of accelerating and security deployment. One of the key things, I don't think Tim mentioned it earlier, but in terms of the CIS, not only do we have the baseline policies we can roll out and deploy across the environments, they also have CIS baked images that we can deploy. So there are already CIS images for Windows 11 multi-session, Windows 11 that we can deploy, roll out, and start as a secured beginning point versus going the opposite direction, deploying from the Microsoft library a Windows 11 2024 or 25 H2, H1, whatever we're on right now, I forget.
Yep.
I think H2 currently, from the repository, and then having to go through and try to apply the policies and all the other components on top of it. We can kick it out of the box, know it already meets all the CIS compliance requirements, and then begin layering our components on top of it. So some really compelling things that this tool is bringing that we're able to then, because we're leveraging it, we can provide to our customer base to help, again, take advantage of these things that are here and really accelerate that time to value in the industry from that aspect. Yeah, so kind of bringing it home, we talked about why is this the magic SKU, right? We've looked at kind of business basic, business standard from the Microsoft 365 maps, what's included, what's not included, kind of where the value is, and again, why it's important from a security, compliance, regulatory perspective, and some of the things it's helping us to do from that modern work perspective, right? So if we start breaking this down, if you look at all of the individual components and the cost of those, that are included in that business premium SKU, right? So first is Entra ID P1. This is again is your conditional access granular control around your user community, how they're accessing, where they're accessing, right? These are key points to secure your M365 environment, which essentially is becoming the new almost like active directory of your organization. You need to go forward, especially as you move more from on-prem towards that cloud direction, where most of us are in a hybrid today. As we start moving more towards the right into full cloud, this definitely becomes almost an absolute have to have. And if you're not doing multi-factor authentication into your Office tenant, I'm here to tell you you're at significant risk today. And so that's something you definitely want to button up. But again, it's $6.03 to add it on to an existing SKU. It's included in the business premium, right? Defender, $525 to add that one on. Intune, $840, right? So I mean, just alone right there, and then we have the information protection policies for Azure at $2. So again, all in, you're looking at 20 some dollars just for the add-ons, not including what's already in business premium, which is your Office suite, the other entitlements from Lapse, the Enter ID join, the other components from a Windows perspective, right? They're all in that SKU on top of that. When you start stacking that up against the business basic or even business standard, you can't even provide these licenses and come in at you're paying almost twice as much. So again, this is why we really want to make sure that you folks are aware that there's a lot of value here you need to really unpack and take advantage of. Otherwise, you're really just leaving money on the table, right, at the end of the day. And if you'll advance for me real quick, Josh, one of the things we do want to point out, because this is something that we do face with our organizations, is that M365 Business Premium and all the business SKUs in particular are only able to be licensed up to 300 users, right? So there's always a question, well, what happens when I hit 301 users? Well, the recommendation, and again, this is kind of coming from, from Pax8, Microsoft, the industry in general, is that you identify what are your most critical users. So again, your C-level, your finance folks, right? You may put those on an M365 E5. You have to almost go all the way to the E5 to get a similar comparable stack, a feature set and security stack to what you have the business premium. So we can't just go to M365 E3. We still have to do bolt-ons on top of that to even get comparable security to what we have in the stack from the business premium. So we really almost go to the M365 E5 for those executive levels, those high levels. And then we start looking at the E3 plus the E5 security and compliance for your mid-level managers, directors, things like that. So again, there's ways to start trying to break those SKUs up and make sure we stay consistent from the security platform perspective, which is key across these SKUs when we start leveraging above those business premium. But if you're under 300, you should be business premium, and we should be having conversations if you're not there today.